evening. My name is Alan Songer, and I want to thank you all for attending the PCS Drama Department's production of G.K. Chesterton's Magic. Before we begin, a few small notes. If you need to use the restroom during the play, please wait until the scene changes to enter or exit the room. Also, please take note that some elements of our play could be mildly frightening to the youngest of our viewers. Also, please, no flash photography during the play, and no use of cell phones or other electronic devices. If you need to make a call during the play, please step out to the lobby. Otherwise, thank you for coming. I hope you enjoy the show. Have a magical evening.
Who am I? I have a hat, but not to wear. I wear a sword, but not to slay. Endeavor in my bag I bear a pack of cards, yet not to play.
What are you? What are you saying?
It is the language of the elves, daughter of Eve.
I never thought fairies were like you. Why, you're as tall as I am.
We are of such stature as we will, but the elves grow tall, not large, in the midst of mortals.
You mean there are beings greater than we are?
Daughter of men, if you would see a fairy for as he truly is, look for his head above all the stars, and his feet amid the floors of the sea. Old women have taught you that the fairies are too small to be seen, but I tell you, they are too mighty to be seen. They are the elder gods before whom the giants were like pygmies. They are the elemental spirits, and any one of them is larger than the world. And yet, you look for them on acorns and on toadstools, and wonder that you haven't seen them.
But you come in the shape and size of a man.
Because I would speak with a woman.
I think you're growing taller as you speak.
You are Mr. Smith? I mean, you're the rector, I believe.
Yes, I'm the rector.
I'm the Duke's secretary. His Grace asked me to say that he will see you presently, but he is engaged just now with the doctor.
Is the Duke ill?
Oh no, the doctor has come to ask the Duke with help for some cause or other. The Duke is never ill.
Is the doctor with him presently?
Why, strictly speaking, he is not. The doctor has gone over the road to fetch a paper connected with his proposal. As you can see, that's his red lamp at the end of the grounds.
I'm much obliged to you. I will wait as long as is necessary.
Oh, it won't be long.
Ah, I beg your pardon, sir. I did not realize that there was anyone else here.
I beg yours. A new clergyman cannot expect to be expected. I only came to see the Duke about some local affairs.
Ah, and as it happens, I have also come to see the Duke. But I suppose we would both like to get a hold of him by a separate tier.
Oh, there's no disguise as far as I'm concerned. I've joined this league for starting a model public house in the parish. And, in plain terms, I've come to ask His Grace for a subscription to it.
And as it happens, I have come to join the league against the erection of a model public house in this parish. The similarity of our situation grows with every instant.
Yes, I think we must have been twins.
So tell me, what exactly is a model public house? Do you mean a toy?
I mean a place where an Englishman can get a decent drink and drink it decently. Do you call that a toy?
No, I should call that a conjuring trick, or an apology to your cloth, a miracle.
I accept that apology to my cloth. I'm doing my duty as a priest. How can the church have a right to make men fast if she does not allow them to feast?
And when you have done feasting them, you will send them to me to be cured.
And when you are done curing them, you'll send them to me to be buried.
Well, you have all the old doctrines. I suppose it's only fair you have all the old jokes, too.
By the way, you call it a conjuring trick that poor people should drink moderately.
I call it a chemical discovery that alcohol is not a food.
You don't drink wine yourself?
Drink wine? Why, what else is there to drink?
So, drinking moderately is a conjuring trick you can do anyhow.
Well, let us hope so. Speaking of conjuring, there's to be conjuring and all sorts of things here this very afternoon.
Conjuring, indeed. How's that?
His Grace will be the Duke present, but he has asked me to deal with the business matter first.
Why, this is rather splendid. The Duke has given £50 to the erection of the new public house.
The Duke is very liberal.
Very, but this is quite odd. He has also given £50 to the league against the erection of a model public house.
The Duke is very liberal-minded.
Absent-minded, I should call it.
Well, yes. The Duke does suffer from absence of mind. He's all for compromise. Don't you know the kind of man who, when you tell him about the 5 best breeds of dogs, he always ends up buying a mongrel? The Duke is the kindest of men. He's always trying to please everybody. He generally finishes by pleasing nobody.
Yes, I think I know this sort of thing.
Take this conjuring, for instance. You're aware that the Duke has 2 wards who are to live with him?
I heard something about a niece and a nephew from Ireland.
The niece is from Ireland. The nephew arrives from America tonight. I think I will tell you all about it. Despite your precious public house, you seem to be a sane enough man. And I fancy I'll want all the sane men I can get tonight.
I'm at your service. You know, I'd rather guessed you did not come here only to protest against my precious public house.
You guessed right. I was family physician to the Duke's brother in Ireland. I guess you could say that I knew the family pretty well.
I suppose you mean you knew something odd about them.
Well, they saw fairies and things of that sort.
And I suppose to the medical mind, seeing fairies means much the same as seeing snakes.
Well, they saw fairies in Ireland. I suppose it's quite correct to see fairies in Ireland. It's like gambling in Monte Carlo. It's quite correct. But I do draw the line at them bringing their fairies to England. I object to them bringing their ghosts and goblins and witches into the poor Duke's own backyard, and with a yard of my own red lamp. It shows a lack of tact.
But I do understand that the Duke's niece and nephew see witches and goblins between here and your own red lamp.
Well, the nephew is from America. It stands to reason that you can't see fairies in America. But there's an old superstition in the family. I'm not at ease in my mind about the girl. She's always going on about seeing someone, some elf or wizard or something. I don't like it at all.
Have you told the Duke?
Oh yes, I've told the Duke. The result was the conjurer.
Conjurer?
The Duke is indescribable. You shall meet him presently, and you may decide for yourself. Put 2 or 3 facts or ideas in front of him, and the thing he makes out of them is always something that seems to have nothing to do with them at all. Tell any other sane human being about a girl who dreams of fairies in Ireland and her practical brother from America, and he would solve it in some obvious manner that would at least please somebody. Send the girl to America, or let her have her fairies in Ireland. Now the Duke thinks the conjurer would just meet the case. I suppose he vaguely thinks that he would brighten things up a bit. satisfy the believer's interest in supernatural things and the unbeliever's interest in smart things. In fact, the believer thinks the conjurer is a fraud, and the unbeliever thinks he's a fraud too. The conjurer satisfies nobody. That is why he satisfies the Duke.
Good morning, Mrs. Smith. Sorry to have kept you waiting. I'm rather in a rush today. You know Mr. Corleone is coming this afternoon.
Yes, Your Grace. His train will be in by now. I have sent the trap.
Oh, thanks. My nephew, Dr. Grimthorpe. Morris, you know. Miss Corleone's brother from America. He's been doing great things out there. Petrol or something. Must move with the times, eh?
I'm afraid Mr. Smith doesn't always agree with moving with the times.
Oh, come. Progress, you know. Progress? Well, we know how busy you are. You mustn't overwork yourself, you know. Hastings was telling me that you laughed over those subscriptions of mine. Well. I believe in looking at both sides of a question. Aspects, as old Buffalo used to say. Aspects. Now, you represent the tendency to drink in moderation, and you do good in your way. And the doctor represents a tendency not to drink at all, and he does good in his way. We can't all be ancient Britons, you know. Ancient Britons?
Don't worry yourself. It's only His Grace's broad-mindedness.
Well, I saw the place you're putting up for Mrs. Smith. Very good work. Very good work indeed. Art for the people, eh? I particularly like that woodwork over the west door. I'm glad to see you're using the new sort of grading. Why? It all reminds one of the French Revolution.
Does it remind you of the French Revolution?
As much as anything else, His Grace never reminds me of anything.
Say, did somebody see one of these trunks?
Corleone, a pleasure.
Oh, see here. Does a duke live here?
Yes, only one.
I reckon he's the one I want to have. I'm his nephew.
Ah, yes, delighted to see you, my dear boy. Hey, you've been doing very well for yourself.
Oh, well, pretty well, duke. The better self of Paul Wanda, I guess. I manage the old man's mines out in Arizona, you know.
Ah, yes. Very go-ahead man. Very go-ahead methods, I'm told. And I dare say he does a great deal of good with his money. And we can't go back to the Spanish Inquisition.
And how's Patricia?
Oh, she's well.
Well, then, where's Patricia?
Miss Corleone is walking about the grounds, I believe.
Oh, it's a mighty chilly night to choose. Does my sister commonly select such evenings to take the air in the damp?
If I may say so, I quite agree with you. I have often taken the liberty of warning your sister against going out in all weathers like this.
Well, the artist temperament, you know. What I always call the artistic temperament. Wordsworth, you know, and all that.
All what?
Well, everything's temperament, you know. It's her temperament to see the fairies. It's my temperament not to see the fairies. Why, I've walked around these grounds 20 times and never saw a fairy. Why, it's like this wizard, or whatever she calls it. For her, there's somebody there. For us, there would not be somebody there, don't you see?
Somebody there? What do you mean?
Well, you can't quite call it a man.
A man?
As old Buffalo used to say, what is a man?
With your permission, Duke, I eliminate old Buffalo. If you mean to suggest that somebody had the tarnation coolness to wander about, some man...
Oh, not a man, you know. A wizard, something mythical, you know.
Not a man, but a medicine man.
I am a medicine man.
You don't look mythical, Doc.
Well, the artistic temperament.
See here, Duke, in most commercial ways, we're pretty forward country. But in these moral ways, we're content to be a pretty backward country. And if you ask me whether I like my sister walking about on a night like this, well, I don't.
It appears you Americans are quite as advanced as I hoped.
Whose voice is that?
It's no business of mine to decide.
You need not. I know who it is. Patricia, where have you been?
Oh, in Fairyland.
Oh, and whereabouts is that?
It's rather different from other places. It's either nowhere or wherever you are.
Has it any inhabitants?
Generally only two. One self and one shadow. But whether he is my shadow or I am his is never really found out.
He? Who?
Oh, you needn't get conventional about him, Morris. He's not immortal.
Well then, what's his name?
We have no names there. You never really know anyone if you know his name.
Well then, what does he look like?
I've only seen him in twilight. He seems robed in a long cloak, with a peaked cap or hood, like the elves in my nursery stories. Sometimes, when I look out the window here, I can see him passing around the house like a shadow, and see his hood, dark against the sunset, or the rising of the moon.
See here, Patricia, I reckon this kind of thing is going to be the limit. I won't just have you taken in by some flaming tramp or fortune teller because you try to read minor poetry on fairies. If this gypsy or whatever he is...
Calm. You must allow a little more for poetry. We can't all feed on nothing but petrol, you know.
Oh, quite right. And being Irish, you know, Celtic, as old Buffalo used to say. And those charming songs about an Irish girl in a plaid shawl and a banshee. Poor old Gladstone.
I thought you yourself considered the family superstition bad for the health.
We consider the family superstition better for the health than a family quarrel. Well, it must be nice to be so young and still see all those stars and sunsets. Us old buffers won't be too strict with you if your views get a bit mixed up, shall we say? If the stars should get loose about the grass by mistake, or once or twice the sunset gets into the east, we should only say, dream on. Dream for those of us who can dream no longer. Dream for all mankind. But do not quite forget the difference.
What difference?
Why, the difference between the things that are beautiful and the things that are there. That red lamp over my door is not beautiful, but it is there. You might even come to be glad that it is there one day, when your stars of silver and gold have faded. I'm an old man now, but some men are still glad to find my red star. I do not say, of course, that they are wise men.
Yes, I know you're good to everyone, but don't you think there are floating and spiritual stars that'll last longer than the red lamps?
Yes, but they are fixed stars.
The red star will last my time.
No, capital. It's a lot like Tennyson, you know. Why, I remember when I was an undergrad.
What's the matter?
The red star was gone.
Nonsense. It's only somebody standing in front of it. Dude, there's somebody standing in your garden.
I told you to walk about the garden.
Oh, if it's that fortune teller of yours.
Why really? Somebody in the garden? This land campaign.
A spry fellow, your friend. He slipped through my fingers like a shadow.
I told you he was a shadow.
Well, then I guess we're going to have a shadow hunt. Got a lantern, Duke?
Oh, you need me. He will come when I call him. You may enter all doors.
By Jove!
Oh. See here now, we've got you, and we know you're a fraud.
Pardon me, but I don't fancy that we know that. For I myself must confess something of the doctor's agnosticism.
I didn't know your parson stuck up for any fables other than your own.
I stick up for the thing every man has a right to. Perhaps the only thing every man has a right to.
And what is that?
The benefit of the doubt. Even your master, the petroleum millionaire, has a right to that. And I think he needs it more.
There isn't much doubt about the question, Minister. I've met this sort of fellow often enough. The sort of fellow who steals money out of girls by telling them he can make stones disappear.
Do you say you can make stones disappear?
Yes, I can make stones disappear.
And I reckon you're the kind of tough who says you can make a watch and chain disappear.
Why, yes, I can also make a watch and chain disappear.
And I bet you're pretty good at disappearing yourself.
I have done such a thing.
Will you disappear now?
No. I think I'll appear instead. Evening, Your Grace. Afraid I'm rather too early for the performance, but this young gentleman here seemed rather impatient for it to begin.
Yes, why really? You are,
Yes, I am the conjurer.
I'm so glad you can make it, sir.
sorry I'm not a wizard.
I wish you a thief instead.
Have I committed a worse crime than thieving?
You committed the cruelest crime I think there is.
What is the cruelest crime?
Stealing a child's toy.
What have I stolen?
A fairy tale.
There are only a few small matters. Here are the programs of entertainment that your grace wanted. Miss Carleon desires to see them very much.
Oh, yes, thanks, thanks.
Shall I carry them for your grace?
Oh, no, I shan't forget. Why? You have no idea how businesslike I am. We have to be, you know. Why, look at remembering people. The king never forgets people. I never forget people. Why? The professor here performs before the king. You see it on the caravans, you know. Performs before the king every night, I suppose.
Well, I do sometimes let His Majesty have an evening off.
Quite right. And you'll say with me that the great business for a king is remembering people?
I should say it is remembering which people to remember.
Ah, well, yes. Being rather businesslike.
Shall I take the program?
No. I shan't forget. Was there anything else?
I have to go about a wire to Stratford. The only thing that's all urgent is the militant vegetarians.
Ah, the militant vegetarians. You've heard of them, I'm sure. Won't obey the government, so long as it serves out meat.
Oh, come on, let them be comforted. A great many people don't get much meat.
Well, I'm bound to say they're very enthusiastic. Ah, yes, advanced too. Certainly advanced. Like Joan of Arc.
Was Joan of Arc a vegetarian?
Oh, well, it's a very high ideal after all. The sacredness of life, you know, the sacredness of life. Well, they carry it too far. They killed a policeman down in Kent.
Killed a policeman? Oh, how vegetarian. I suppose it was not they didn't eat him.
They're asking for only small subscriptions. Indeed, they prefer to collect a large number of half-crowns to prove the popularity of their movement. But I should advise your grace.
Give them 3 shillings then.
If I might suggest anything.
Hang it all! We gave the vegetarians 3 shillings. It seems only fair.
If I might suggest anything, I believe your grace would be wise not to subscribe in this case. The anti-vegetarians have already used their funds to form gangs, ostensibly to protect their own meetings. And if the vegetarians use their funds to form gangs to break up the meetings, well, it will look rather funny when we've paid roughs on both sides. It will be rather difficult to explain once it comes before the magistrate.
But I shall be the magistrate. That's the system, my dear Hastings. That's the advantage of the system. Not a logical system, no Rousseau in it. But see how well it works. I shall be the very best magistrate that could be on the bench. The others will be biased, you know. Old Sir Lawrence is a vegetarian himself, and might be hard on the anti-vegetarian roughs. Colonel Crabshaw would be sure to be hard on the vegetarian roughs. But, seeing as I've paid roughs on both sides, I shan't be hard on either of them. And there you have it. Perfect impartiality.
Shall I take the program?
No. I shan't forget them now. I shan't forget. Well, Professor, any news from the conjuring world?
I'm afraid there's never any news in the conjuring world.
Oh, come. Surely you have a newspaper. Everyone has a newspaper nowadays, you know. The, Daily Soul Swallower, that sort of thing.
No, I've been a journalist myself, but I always think that journalism and conjuring will always be incompatible.
Incompatible? Oh, that's where I take larger views. That's where I defer. Nothing's incompatible, you know. Oh, except for husband and wife and so on. You must ask Morse about that. Wonderful the way incompatibility has gone forward in the States.
I only mean that the two trades rest on opposite principles. The whole point of being a conjurer is that you want to explain a thing that's happened.
Well, I'm the journalist.
Well, the whole point of being a journalist is that you do explain anything that hasn't happened.
But you'll want someone to explain the new tricks.
There are no tricks. And if there were, we shouldn't want them discussed.
I'm afraid you're not really advanced. Are you interested in modern progress?
Yes, Your Grace, we're interested in all tricks done by illusion.
Oh, well, I must go see see how Morris is doing. Pleasure of seeing you later.
Pleasure meeting you as well. Why nice men such fools? Well, there we are. Pack of cards then. Was a pack of cards. Pack of cards was never a pack of cards. In the hat, which looks like a gentleman's hat, but which in reality is no gentleman's hat. Only my hat. And I am not a gentleman. I am a conjurer, and this is a conjurer's hat. I mustn't take this hat off to a lady. I can take rabbits out of it, goldfish out of it, even snakes out of it. Only I mustn't take my own head out of it. Suppose I'm a lower animal than a rabbit or a snake. But they can get out of the conjurer's hat. I can't. I am a conjurer and nothing else but a conjurer. Unless I can show something else. That would be worse.
I beg your pardon. I came to get the programs. My uncle wants them.
I beg your pardon, Mrs. Corleone. Might I speak to you for a moment? The question is purely practical.
I can hardly imagine what the question can be.
I am the question.
And what do I have to do with that?
Why you have everything to do with this, Corleone? I am the question. You are...
Well, what am I?
You are the answer.
The answer to what?
The answer to me. You call me a liar because I walked about the fields with you and so I can make stones to speak. Well, so I can. I'm a conjurer. A mere point of fact, it was not a lie. But if it were a lie, I should call it just the same. It may or may not be a lie.
I know nothing about such lies.
I don't know whether you realize how much of a great effort it is for a man like me to talk to a lady like you, even on false pretenses. I'm an adventurer. I'm a blackguard. If one can know the title of being in all the blackguard societies of the world. I thought everything up on myself when I was a gutter sniper in Fleet Street, or lower still, a journalist in Fleet Street. Before I met you, I never thought the rich ever felt at all. Oh well, that is all I have to say. We had some good conversations, didn't we? I'm a liar, but I did tell you a great deal of the truth.
Yes, you did tell me a great deal of the truth. You told me hundreds of thousands of truth. But you never told me the one truth that one wants to know.
What is that?
You never told me the truth about yourself. You never told me that you were only the conjurer.
I did not tell you because I don't even know. I do not know whether I am only the conjurer.
What do you mean?
Sometimes I'm afraid I'm something worse than the conjurer.
I can hardly think of anything worse than a conjurer who does not call himself a conjurer.
There is something worse. But that is not what I want to say. Come, let me put you a case. Never worry about whether it is our case. A man spends his time incessantly going about his third-class carriages to fifth-rate lodgings. He has to make up new tricks, new pattern, new nonsense, sometimes every night of his life. Most of the time he has to do the beastly black cities, the Midlands and the North, where he can't get out into the country. But time and again, he gets into some gentleman's country town, where he can get out into the country. You know how all sorts of actors and auditors and so on like to rehearse their effects in the open air if they can. You know the story of the great statesman who was heard by his gardener saying as he paced the grounds, "Had I, Mr. Speaker, had even the smallest intimation I could be called upon to speak this evening." Well, conjurers are no different. It takes some time to be proud and prompted. A man like that walks about all the woods and fields, doing all sorts of nonsense and talking all kinds of bosh because he thinks he's alone. One night, this man found he was not alone. He found a very beautiful child watching him.
A child?
Yes, that was his first inclination. He's a very intimate friend of mine. I've known him all my life. But he tells me he has since found she is not a child. She has not fulfilled the definition.
And what is the definition of a child?
Someone you can play with.
Why did you wear the cloak of Ichabod?
I think it escaped your notice. It was raining.
And this friend of yours, what did he do?
You've told me what he did. He destroyed a fairy tale, for he created a fairy tale that was bound to destroy. But do you blame him very much for his calling? If he enjoyed the only fairy tale he's ever had in his life? Remember, he's read all the fairy tales as much as you have. Fairy tales are the only democratic institutions. All the classes have heard all the fairy tales. So do you blame him very much if he too tried to have a holiday in fairyland?
Well, I blame him less than I did. But I still say there can be nothing worse than false magic. And after all, it was he who brought the false magic.
Yes, it was she who brought the real magic.
I know that one. I know that. I know that. Oh, that was the wire. That goes up the sleeve. Oh, that's the false bottom. And oh, that's the substitute pack of cards. And
Really, Lawrence? You mustn't talk as if you knew everything.
Oh, I don't mind anyone knowing everything, Miss Carlyle. There's something much more important than knowing how a thing is done.
And what is that?
Knowing how to do it.
Oh, that's so, eh? Being the high-toned conjurer because you can't any longer take on the sidewalk as a fairy.
Lawrence, you are very rude. And it's quite ridiculous to be rude. Why, this man is only practicing some tricks by himself in the garden. If it was anyone's mistake, it was mine. Now come, shake hands. Whatever men do when they apologize. Don't be silly. He won't turn you into a bowl of goldfish.
Well, I guess that's so. Shake. And you won't turn me into a bowl of goldfish anyhow, Professor. I understand that when you do produce a bowl of goldfish, they are generally slips of carrots. Is that so, Professor?
Why, yes. Judge for yourself.
Very good, very good. But I know how that's done. I know how that's done. You have an Indian rubber cap, you know, or a cover.
Yes.
Most mysteries are tolerably plain if you know the apparatus. I guess I wish we had all the old apparatus from all the old priests and prophets since the beginning of the world. I bet the old apparatus were just a matter of pendulum wires.
I don't understand you. What old apparatus do you want so much?
Well, sir, I want that apparatus so that turns frogs into snakes. I want that small appliance so that brought water out of a rock when old man Moses chose to hit it. I guess it's a pity we've lost the old machinery. I guess I just wish we had those old conjurers here that call themselves patriarchs and prophets in your precious Bible.
Morris, you mustn't talk like that.
Well, I don't believe in religion.
Come. No one but women believe in religion.
Well, I think it's a fitting opportunity to show you another ancient conjuring trick.
Oh, and which one is that?
The vanishing lady.
There is one apparatus I regret especially very much.
Yes?
The apparatus for writing the Book of Job.
Well, they didn't know everything in those old times.
No, and in those old times they knew they didn't. Where shall wisdom be found? And what is the place of understanding?
Somewhere in America, I believe.
Man knoweth not the price thereof, neither is it found in the land of the living. The deep saith, it is not in me. The sea saith, it is not with me. Death and destruction say we have heard tell of it. For God understandeth the way thereof, and he knoweth the place thereof. For he looketh to the ends of the earth, and seeth under the whole heaven. But to man he said, depart from evil, which is wisdom, and behold the fear of the Lord, which is understanding. How's that for agnosticism, Dr. Grimthorpe? What a pity the apparatus is lost.
Well, you may smile just how you choose, I reckon. But I say the conjurer here could be the biggest man in the big blessed centuries if he could show us how the old holy tricks were done. We must say this for old man Moses, that he was in advance of his time. When he did the old tricks, they were new tricks. He got pulled in the public. He could know his tricks before grown men, great bearded fighting men who could win battles and sing songs. But this modern conjurer is all behind the times. There's a trick on that table that I don't know. The whole trade's as dead as a mummy, and not half so satisfied. Why, he brought a bowl of goldfish just now in a trick that anybody could do.
Oh, I agree. The apparatus is perfectly simple. By the way, let me have a look at those goldfish of yours, will you?
Hey, play actor, come here to conjure. I'm not here to do stale tricks. I'm here to see through them. I say it's an old trick and...
True. But as you said, we never showed us except as schoolboys.
And may I ask you, Professor Hocus Pocus, or whatever your name is, who are you calling school?
I beg your pardon. Your sister will tell you I'm sometimes mistaken about children.
I forbid you to appeal to my sister.
Oh. That's exactly what a schoolboy would do.
I am not a schoolboy, Professor. I am a quiet businessman. But I tell you, in the country that I come from, the hand of a quiet businessman goes to his hip pocket at an insult like that.
Well, let it go to his pocket. I thought the head of a quiet businessman more often went to someone else's pocket.
Gentlemen, I think you are both forgetting yourselves.
Perhaps. Sorry, my actions were in excess of the young gentleman's deserts. Sometimes I wish I could forget myself.
Well, the entertainment is coming on, and you English don't like a scene. I reckon I'll have to bury the blamed old hatchet too.
Mr. Collier, you'll forgive an old man who knew your father well if he doubts you are doing yourself justice and treating yourself as an American Indian merely because you have lived in America. Why, in my old Prince Huxley's day, we of the middle class disbelieved in reason and all sorts of things. But we did believe in good manners. It's a pity if the aristocracy can't. I don't like to hear you say that you're a savage and that you've buried your tomahawk. I'd rather hear you say, as your Irish ancestors would have said, that you have sheathed your sword with the dignity proper to a gentleman.
Very well. I have sheathed my sword with the dignity proper to a gentleman.
And I've sheathed my sword with the dignity proper to a conjurer.
And how does a conjurer sheath a sword?
Swallows it.
There shall be no more quarrel.
As I were, I have a great dislike of quarrel, for a reason quite beyond duty of my thought.
And what is that?
I object to a quarrel because it always interrupts an argument. May I bring you back for a moment to the argument? You were saying that these modern conjuring tricks are simply the old miracles we once found out. But surely another thing is possible. When we speak of things being a sham, we generally mean they're imitations of things that are genuine. Take that Reynolds of the Duke's great-grandmother. If I were to say it was a copy...
Well, the Duke's real amiable, but I reckon that's what you'd call the interruption of an argument.
Well, suppose I did say so. You wouldn't take it as meaning that Sir Joshua Reynolds never lived. Why should sham miracles prove to us that real saints and prophets never lived? There may be sham magic and real magic also. There may be turnip ghosts precisely because they are real ghosts. There may be theatrical fairies precisely because they are real fairies. You don't abolish the Bank of England by pointing to a forged banknote.
I hope the professor enjoys being called a forged banknote.
Almost as much as being called prospectus of some American companies.
Gentlemen!
I'm sorry.
Well, let's have the argument first. Then I guess we can have the quarrel afterwards. I'll clean this house of some encumbrances. See here, Mr. Smith, I'm not putting anything on your real miracle notion. I say, and science says, that there's a cause for everything. Sooner or later, science will find out that cause, and it'll make your old miracle look mighty mean. Sooner or later, science will botanize a bit on your turnip ghosts, and make you look turnips yourselves rather than taking any. I say, oh, I say.
Don't like this peaceful argument of yours. The boy's getting much too excited.
You say old man Reynolds lived, and science don't say no. But I guess he's dead now, and you know we'll raise your saints and prophets from the dead, then you'll raise the Duke's great-grandmother to dance on that wall.
The picture! It's moving!
You reckon you'll take us in? You can do all that with wires.
Yes, I can do all that with wires.
And you reckon I should know? Oh, that's how all the dirty spiritualists do all their tricks. They say they can make the furniture move of itself. If it moves, they move it, and we need to know how. You fight that! Everyone knows that. A sliding plank. It can be done with a sliding plank.
Why, yes, it can be done with a slide.
You were right on the spot, Doc, when you talked about that red lamp of yours. That red lamp is the red light of science. That'll put out all the fires of your turnip ghosts. It's a consuming fire, Doctor, but it is the red light of the morning. Your priests and prophets can no more stop that light from shining or change its color and its radiance than Then Joshua could stop the sun and the moon. Oh, why a real fairy in an elven cloak strayed too near that lad an hour or two ago, and it turned him into a common society clown with a white tie. Oh, wait a minute! Wait a minute! I've got you! I'll have you! Oh, you
Just last moments, we need not inquire.
You dare call yourself a man of science and you tell me not to inquire?
We only mean before the moment you might let it alone.
No, priest, I will not let it alone. Oh, could it be done with mirrors? Oh, I've got it. A mixture of lights. Why not? You put a green light on a red light. You don't get blue.
You have done this trick. For God's sake, undo it.
Oh, it's the glass. You've done something to the glass.
I do not think you will find anything wrong with the glass.
Then I'll find out what's wrong with the lamp.
Still down, I
Yes, someone else will be walking about the gardens now. I suppose in this case the night air will not get on the chest.
Well, only the chest.
What is that? Conjure, I know how you do that. You can use a speaker, or maybe you have. No, put me down. I can the girl come to them.
My brother.
I'm afraid he's talking about fairyland.
But he mustn't go out on a night like this. It's very dangerous.
Yes, it is very dangerous. He might meet a fairy.
What do you mean?
Well, you went out in this sort of weather and you met this sort of fairy. So far, it's only brought you sorrow.
Going out to find my brother.
She's not singing those songs to her, is she?
No, he doesn't understand the language of the elves.
Then what are all those cries and gasps I hear?
Normal noises, I believe, of a quiet businessman.
Sir, I can understand you being bitter, for I admit you have been uncivilly received. But to speak like that just now is, quite frankly, simply ungentlemanly.
Can I speak to the doctor?
My lady, of course. Shall I fetch the Duke?
I would prefer the doctor.
Can I be of any use?
I only want the doctor. That last is a wonderful trick of yours.
That last was wonderful.
Thank you. I suppose you mean it was the only one you didn't see through.
Something of the kind, I confess. Your last trick was the best trick I've ever seen. So good, I wish you hadn't done it.
And so do I.
How do you mean? You wish you had never been a conjurer.
Wish I'd never been born.
It's all right so far. Brought it back.
You told me there was mental trouble with the little girl.
No, I told you there was mental trouble in the family.
Where is Mr. Morse Cody?
He's in bed in the next room. His sister is watching him.
His sister? Oh, then you do believe in fairies.
Believe in fairies? What do you mean?
Well, at least you put the person who does believe in them in charge of who doesn't.
Then I suppose I do.
You don't think she'll keep him awake all night with fairy tales?
Certainly not.
You don't think she'll throw the medicine bottle out the window and administer, I don't know, a dewdrop or something of that sort? Or four-leaf clover, say?
Of course not.
I only ask because you scientific men are a little hard on us clergymen. You don't believe in a priesthood, but you'll admit that I'm more really a priest than this conjurer is really a magician. You've been talking a lot about the Bible and the higher criticism. But even by the higher criticism, the Bible is still older than the language of the elves, which, as far as I can make out, was invented this afternoon. But Miss Carleon believed in this wizard. Miss Carleon believed in the language of the elves. And you put her in charge of an invalid without a flicker of doubt. Because you trust women.
Of course I trust women.
You trust a woman through the sleepless hours when a shaking hand or an extra grain would kill.
I do.
But if that woman gets up to go to early service at my church, you call her weak-minded and say that nobody but women can believe in religion.
I should never call this woman weak-minded. No, by God, not even if she went to church.
But there are many as strong-minded who believe passionately in going to church.
Weren't there as many who believe passionately in Apollo?
And what harm came of believing in Apollo? And what massive harm may have come of not believing in Apollo? Does it never strike you that doubt can be a disease as well as faith? That asking questions may be a mania as well as proclaiming doctrines? You talk of religious mania. Is there no such thing as irreligious mania? Is there no such thing in the house at this very moment?
Then you think we should question nothing at all?
I think that is what comes of questioning. Why can't you leave the universe alone and let it mean what it likes? Why shouldn't the thunder be Jupiter? More men have made themselves silly by wondering what the devil it was if it wasn't.
Do you even believe your own religion?
Suppose I don't. I should still be a fool to question it. The child who has doubts about Santa Claus has insomnia. The child who believes has a good night's rest.
You're a pragmatist.
That is what the lawyers call vulgar abuse. But I do appeal to practice. Here's a girl who believes anything, a boy who can't believe anything at all. Upon which has the curse fallen?
Oh, talking about pragmatists, you know. Yes. Oh, we must move with the times, eh? We move. I suppose Roosevelt. Now, yes. Well, first there was the missing link, of course. No. First there was protoplasm, and then the missing link, and the Magna Carta, and so on. Why? Look at the Insurance Act.
I'd rather not.
Oh, you doctors, you know. Prejudice. Well, I never had any myself.
Any what?
Any Marconis. Never touched them. Well, I must go speak to Hastings.
Of all the bloody... You asked me just now who had inherited the family madness?
Yes, I did.
On my living soul, it must be the Duke. Forgive me, sir, but may I detain you for a moment? I'm sure that you are aware that there has been rather grave developments in the case of illness that happened after your performance this evening. I will not, of course, say because of your performance.
Thank you.
Nevertheless, mental excitement is necessarily an element in physiological troubles, and your triumph this evening was really so extraordinary that I cannot pretend to dismiss it from the case. He's at present in a state somewhat analogous to delirium, but in which he can still partially ask and answer questions. The question he continually asks is how you did your last trick.
My last trick.
Now, I was wondering if we could make any arrangements that would be fair to you in the matter. If you could get to me in confidence the means of satisfying this fixed idea he seems to have got. This special condition of semi-delirious disputation is a rare one, and in my experience, related to rather unfortunate cases.
Do you mean he's going mad?
Really, sir, you asked me an unfair question. I cannot explain the finer shades of things to a layman.
And don't you ask me a rather unfair question, Dr. Grinthorpe. If yours is a professional secret, is not mine a professional secret too? If you may hide the truth from the world, why may not I? You don't tell your tricks, I don't tell my tricks.
Ours are not tricks.
But no one can be sure of that till the tricks are told.
Why, anyone can see a doctor's cures as plain as day.
Yes, as plain as they saw that red lamp over your door this evening.
Your secrets, of course, be strictly kept by everyone involved.
Oh, of course, because people in delirium always keep secrets strictly.
No one sees him except for myself and his sister.
Yes, his sister. Is she very anxious?
How would you suppose?
Doctor, there are about 1,000 reasons why I should not tell you how I did that trick. But one will suffice, because it is the most practical of all.
Well, why shouldn't you tell me?
Because you would not believe me if I did.
Oh, Professor, thank you for waiting. I'm sure that the doctors explained the little difficulty we are in much better than I could. Nothing like the medical mind for a scientific statement. Why, look at Tesla.
The professor, of course, feels considerable reluctance in the matter. He's explained that his secrets are an essential part of his profession.
Quite right, quite right. Just at the train and all that, very proper, of course. Quite the case of noblesse oblige. But I dare say we shall find a way through the matter. Now, my dear sir, I hope you will not be offended if I say that this ought to be a business matter. We are asking you for a piece of your professional work and knowledge. And if I might have the pleasure of writing you a check.
Oh, I thank you, Your Grace. But I've already received your check from your secretary. You will find it on the counterfoil just after the check you so kindly gave to the Society for the Suppression of Conjuring.
No, don't take it in that way. Take it in a broader way. Free, you know. Modern and all that. Wonderful man, Bernard Mars.
If you feel any delicacy in the matter, the check need not be made out merely to you. I quite respect your feelings in the matter.
Yes. We could, a cause. Everyone has a cause, you know. We can make it out to, conjurers' widows, or that sort of thing.
I don't have any widows.
Well, we could set up a fund, or annuity for any widows that you may procure. Come. Let me call it, a couple of families.
You would really be willing to pay a sum like this to know how I did that trick?
I would willingly pay much more.
I think I explained to you that the case is serious.
You would willingly pay much more. But suppose I tell you the trick and you find there's nothing in it.
Why, you mean that it's really quite simple? Why, I should say that would be the best possible scenario. A little healthy laughter is the best thing for convalescence.
Do not think you will laugh.
No, but as you say, it's something quite simple.
It is the simplest thing there is. That is why you will not laugh.
Why? What do you mean? What shall we do?
You will disbelieve me.
And why?
You asked me how I did that trick. I will tell you how I did that trick. I did it by magic.
Do you really mean to take the check and then tell us it was only magic?
I tear the check, and I tell you it was only magic.
But hang it all, there's no such thing.
Yes, there is. I wish to God I did not know there is.
Oh, come, really. Magic.
Yes, Your Grace, one of those larger laws you are telling us about.
Pardon, sir.
What do you want?
I want to apologize. I mean, on behalf of the company. I think it was wrong to offer you money. I think it was more wrong to mystify you with medical language and call things delirium. I have more respect for a conjurer's paddle than a doctor's paddle. Both are meant to stupefy, but yours only to stupefy for a moment. And I put it to you on plain terms and in plain human Christian grounds. Here's a poor boy who may be going mad. Suppose you had a son in such a position. Would you not expect people to tell you the whole truth to help you?
Yes, and I told you the whole truth. Go find it out.
You know very well that will not help us.
Well, why not?
You know very well why not. You're an honest man who said it yourself. He would not believe it.
Well, does anyone believe it? Do you believe it?
Your question is fair. Come, let's sit and talk about it. Let me take your cloak.
I will take off my cloak when you take off your coat.
Why? Do you want me to fight?
I want you to be modern. I want you to bear witness to your own creed. I say these things are supernatural. I say this was done by spirit. The doctor does not believe me. He's an agnostic and knows everything. The Duke does not believe me. You can never believe anything so clean as a miracle. Or the devil are you for anyway if you don't believe in a miracle? What does your coat mean if it doesn't mean there's such a thing as a spirit? What does your cousin color mean if it doesn't mean there's such a thing as the supernatural? Oh, why the devil do you dress up like that if you don't believe in it? Or perhaps you don't believe in devils?
I believe. I wish I could believe.
I wish I could disbelieve.
May I speak to the conjurer?
You want the doctor?
No, the conjurer.
Have there been any developments?
I only want to speak to the conjurer. You must tell me how you did that last trick. You will. I know you will. Oh, I know my poor brother was so rude to you. He's rude to everybody. But he's such A little boy.
I suppose you know the things men never tell the women. They're too horrible.
Yes, and there are things that women never tell to men. They are also too horrible. But I'm here to hear them all.
Do you really mean I may say anything I like? However dark it is, however dreadful it is, however damnable it is?
I've gone through too much to be terrified now. Tell me the very worst.
I will tell you the very worst. I fell in love with you the first time I saw you.
You told me I looked like a child.
I told a lie.
Oh, this is terrible.
I was in love. I took an opportunity. You believe quite simply I was a magician, but
Oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. I never believed you were a magician.
Never believed I was a magician?
No, I always knew you were a man.
Oh, I'm a man and you're a woman. And all the elves have gone to Elfland and all the devils to hell. And you and I walk out of this great vulgar house and be married? I think everyone in this house tonight is crazy. Oh, what am I saying? As if you could marry me. Oh, Lord.
This is the first time you failed in courage.
What do you mean?
I mean to point out that you recently made an offer, and I accept it.
Oh, it's nonsense, it's nonsense. How can a man marry an archangel, let alone a lady? My mother was a lady, and she married a dying fiddler who tramped the roads. The mixture plays cat and banjo with my body and soul. I can see my mother now, cooking food in dirtier and dirtier lodgings, and donning socks with weaker and weaker eyes, when she might have won pearls by consenting to be a rational person.
And she might have grown pearls by consenting to be an oyster.
There was very little pleasure in her life.
There's little, a very little, in everyone's lives. The question is, what kind? We cannot turn life into a pleasure, but we can choose such pleasures that are worthy of us and our mortal souls. Your mother chose, and I have chosen.
Mortal souls. Suppose if I got down to worship you and anyone else would laugh.
Come, I think this is more convenient. Yes, I'll do everything your mother did. Not so well, of course. I'll don the conjurer's hat. Does one don hats? And cook the conjurer's dinner. By the way, what is the conjurer's dinner? There's always goldfish, I suppose.
Carrots.
And now that I think of it, you can always pull a rabbit out of your hat. What a cheap life that must be. By the way, how does one cook a rabbit? The Duke is always going on about poached rabbits. But really, we'll be as happy as good for us. We'll be confidential, please, and have no secrets. I insist in knowing all truths.
I don't know whether I'm on my head or on my heels.
And now, as we're going to be so confidential and comfortable, you'll just tell me that real, practical, tricky little way you did that last trick.
How I did that last trick? I did it by devils. You can believe in fairies, can't you believe in devils?
No, I can't believe in devils.
Well, this room is full of them.
What do you mean?
It means that I've done what many men have done, but few I think have thrown by. Remember how I told you I mix with many queer sets of people? Well, among others, I mix with those who pretend, both truly and falsely, to do our tricks by the aid of spirits. I dabbled a bit in table rapping and table turning, but I soon had reason to give it up.
And why did you give it up?
Well, it started by giving me headaches. And I found that the morning after every spiritualist seance, I had a feeling of lowness, of degradation, of having been soiled. Much like the feeling, I suppose, that men have the morning after they've been drunk. But I've never actually been drunk.
Glad of that.
That's before to try. It wasn't long before the spirits with whom I've been playing at table turning do what I think they do at the end of all such table turning.
And what did they do?
They turn the tables. They turn the tables upon me. Patricia, I don't worry much of being effects. As long as these saints were my servants, they seem to be like pharaohs. But when they tried to be my masters, I found that they were not pharaohs. I found the spirits with whom I had at least come into contact with were evil, awfully, naturally evil.
Did they say so?
Do not talk of what they said. I was a loose fellow, but I'd never fallen so low as such things. I resisted them, and after a pretty bad time, psychologically speaking, I cut them actually. They were always tempting me to use the power I got from them. It was not very much. It was enough to alter lives, to move things about, and so on. I don't know whether you realize it's rather a strain on a man to drink bad coffee at a coffee stall, when he has just enough magic in him to make an empty bottle of champagne walk out of an empty shop.
Well, I think you behaved rather well.
And when I fell at last, it was not for something half so clean and Christian as champagne. Black blind pride and anger and all kinds of heathenry. And because of the impudence of a schoolboy. I called upon the fiends and they obeyed.
Oh, you poor fellow.
Your goodness is the only goodness that never goes wrong.
And what are we to do about Morris? I believe him, my dear, but he never will.
There's no bigot like an atheist, I must think.
Where are you going?
I'm going to ask the God whose enemies I've served if I'm still worthy to save the child.
Remarkable man, Andrew. Curious man. Clever man. The kind of man that, you know, Lord bless us, what was that?
What's what? What's what?
Could have sworn I heard footsteps or something.
Oh, Hastings! Hastings! I thought you were a ghost! You must be, looking white or something!
I have brought back the answer to the anti-vegetarians.
Why, Hastings, you are looking white.
It is... I ask your grace's pardon. I had a slight shock upon entering the room.
Shock? What shock?
It is the first time, I think, that your grace's work has been disturbed by any private feelings of mine. I shall not trouble your grace with them. It will not occur again.
What an extraordinary fellow. I wonder if...
How do you feel?
I feel as if I must have a window open or if I must have it closed. But I don't know which it is. It doesn't go!
Really, sir? I'm not
It was
used
not
to
you that I told to go.
No, but I think I will. This room is simply horrible.
Room horrible? Room horrible? No. It's only crowded, that's all. I don't seem to know all the people. These larger homes.
Go back to the hell from whence I called you. It is the last order I shall give.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to tell that poor little lad a lie. I have found in the garden what he did not find in the garden. I found a reasonable explanation for how to do that trick.
Think you're something like a great man. May I take your answer to him now?
No, thank you. I shall do it myself.
Well, I dare say we all felt devilishly queer just now. Wonderful things there are in this world. I suppose it's only electricity.
I think there's been more than electricity in all this.
Oh, Morris is ever so much better. The conjurer told him such a good story of how the last trick was done.
Professor, we owe you 1,000 thanks!
Really, sir, you have doubled your claim to originality.
It's much more marvelous to explain a miracle than it works. By the way, what was your explanation?
I shall not tell you.
Indeed? Why not?
Because all this would not avail. If I told you that lie about I told Mr. Morris Carlin about how I did that trick.
Well,
You would believe it as he believed it. You cannot think of how that trick can be done naturally. I alone found out how it can be done naturally after I had done it by magic. But if I tell you a natural way of doing it,
well,
half an hour after I've left this house, and you'll all be saying how it was done. Goodbye.
I shall not say goodbye.
You're as great as well as good, but a saint can be a temptress as well as a sinner. I place my pride in your hands. Oh yes, I have very little left. We began with a fairy tale. Have I any right to take advantage of that fairy tale? Has not that fairy tale really and truly come to an end?
Yes, that fairy tale has really and truly come to an end. It is very hard for a fairy tale to come to an end. If you leave it alone, it'll linger everlasting. Our fairy tale came to an end in the only way a fairy tale can come to an end. In the only way a fairy tale can leave off being fairy tale.
What do you mean?
It has come true.